Alex, I was out in the garage until about 2 in the morning last night, just staring at a slab of melamine. My wife thinks I finally lost the plot, but I was trying to visualize the perfect pour for a new outdoor counter. There's something about the smell of wet cement that it gets under your fingernails and stays in your head.
Tiger, most people dream about tropical islands. You're dreaming about masonry aggregate. That is deeply concerning. But honestly, I get it. There's a specific kind of Sunday morning energy when the shop is clean, or at least clean enough, and you've got a fresh stack of projects to tackle.
Exactly. The calm before the sawdust storm. And today's a big one. We're looking at some massive shifts in the tool world. I'm talking mergers that feel like tectonic plates moving, plus some real talk on why the HVAC world is basically a gold mine right now.
And don't forget the maker mogul stuff. I've seen your spreadsheets, Tiger. You're trying to turn everyone into a CEO.
Hey, if you're going to spend your weekends covered in glue, you might as well get paid for the privilege. But first, we have to talk about DeWalt. They're doing something with battery cells that actually makes my brain itch.
Okay, I saw the headline, Tabless Technology. It sounds like something a marketing department dreamed up because they ran out of adjectives. Is this actually a big deal, or is it just another way to get us to buy new chargers?
No, this is the real deal. Usually, inside those little lithium cells, you have a physical tab that connects the guts to the terminal. Think of it like a 4-lane highway narrowing down to a single-lane dirt road right at the exit. That bottleneck creates heat, and heat is the silent killer of batteries.
So DeWalt just deleted the bottleneck.
Pretty much. They've essentially turned the entire edge of the internal foil into the connection. It's like the highway just opens up into a giant parking lot. Their new FlexVolt 12 pack is using this, and the heat management is night and day. I used one of the prototypes on a heavy-duty grinding job last week. Usually, after 20 minutes, the battery feels like a hot potato. This thing stayed cooler than a cucumber in a snowdrift.
A cucumber in a snowdrift. Very poetic. But speaking of heavy hitters, did you see the news about Makita?
Oh man, Makita acquiring Panasonic's power tool division? That's like find out your two favorite local bars are merging into one giant super pub. It's effective this September.
It's a weird pair though, isn't it? Makita is the king of the job site. Every trailer has 10 of those teal drills. Panasonic, I think of them more for high-end electronics or those terrifyingly precise assembly line tools.
That's exactly why it's a genius move. Makita wins on scale and brute force. Panasonic wins on the smarts. Panasonic has been doing some of the best high-tolerance battery engineering in the world for years, mostly for industrial manufacturing. If Makita takes that tech and puts it into a framing nailer, look out. We're about to see tools that are smarter than the people holding them.
Speak for yourself, Tiger. Some of us are still trying to figure out which way the blade goes on a jigsaw.
Well, as long as you don't put it in upside down, you're ahead of the curve. And look, DeWalt isn't just sitting there. They've overhauled the PowerStack 5AH and the XR Power Packs too. It's a good year to be a cordless tool addict, even if your wallet is currently weeping in the corner.
Speaking of wallets, let's talk about the trades. We keep hearing about the labor boom, but the 2026 HVAC numbers out of that Vegas Expo were actually kind of wild.
It's the house always wins scenario. Everything is getting hotter, everyone wants cleaner air, and the systems are becoming so complex that you can't just fix them with a hammer and a prayer anymore.
I saw a stat that construction employment is actually growing, while the rest of the economy is basically holding its breath. Why HVAC specifically?
Because it's the bridge between iron and silicon. If you're a technician today, you're part plumber, part electrician, and part software engineer. These new smart grid systems have more sensors than a NASA rover. If you can speak both languages, the physical piping and the digital diagnostics, you aren't just an employee anymore. You're a unicorn.
So you're saying if someone is sitting in their shop right now wondering if they should double down on their certifications, the answer is run, don't walk?
I'll put it this way. I've seen guys who were just parts swappers 5 years ago now, running their own fleets because they took the time to understand the high-efficiency tech. The leverage is entirely with the worker right now. If you've got the skills, you're the one holding the cards at the negotiating table. It's a beautiful time to be handy.
Okay, but what if you don't want to go work for a big HVAC firm? What if you want to stay in your garage and keep making those hand-turned wooden pens or whatever your thing is? The Shopify 2026 report called this the year of the micro brand.
I love that term. It sounds so much better than the guy who sells stuff out of his trunk.
Well, their advice was surprisingly practical. The first thing they said was validate before you build. which sounds like corporate speak, but it's basically don't buy a truckload of walnut until you know someone actually wants a walnut table.
Lord, I wish someone told me that 10 years ago. I once built 6 butcher block islands because I thought they were the next big thing. I ended up using the last 3 as heavy-duty shelving in the back of the shop because no one bought them. I was basically paying for storage space for my own mistakes.
Ouch, so low fidelity ads are the move?
Yeah, throw up a picture of a prototype, run a $10 ad on social media, or just ask a community group. If 50 people ask how much, you've got a business. If it's crickets, you just saved yourself a month of labor and a few grand in materials.
And I noticed they emphasized the 45 plus strategy. Basically, stop trying to go viral and start being a human in your local community. Workshops, local collabs, being a person instead of a brand.
It's the secret sauce. People don't buy a handmade bowl because they need a bowl. They buy it because they want to know the person who made it. And honestly, handling the boring stuff early is the biggest advice I can give. Get that LLC, track every penny. It feels like a root canal while you're doing it, but when tax season rolls around and you've actually made money, you'll thank your past self for not being a chaotic mess.
All right, let's get to the DIY mastery section. You've been teasing this concrete countertop masterclass. I have to ask, isn't concrete just heavy mud? How masterful can it really be?
Heavy mud. Alex, you're breaking my heart. Concrete is the most honest material there is. It's stone that you get to design from scratch. And for an outdoor kitchen, there's nothing better. It laughs at rain, it shrugs off heat, and it looks like it belongs in a 5-star industrial loft.
But it always looks so pitted in the DIY videos. Those little air bubbles that make it look like Swiss cheese.
That's the vibration secret. People think they need a massive industrial shaker table. You don't. I take a palm sander, take the sandpaper off, obviously, and I just run that vibrating head all along the outside of the formwork. You see the bubbles rise to the surface like a fizzy soda. It's incredibly satisfying. Do that for 10 minutes and the finish comes out like glass.
And you mentioned melamine for the molds. Why that specifically?
Because it's perfectly flat and non-porous. Concrete is a snitch. It repeats every single flaw in the surface it's poured against. If you pour it on rough plywood, your countertop will look like rough plywood. You use melamine, and when you peel that mold off, it's like a magic trick.
What about the strength? I've seen people complain about their counters cracking the first time the ground shifts.
You can't just dump a bag of Quick Ret into a box and hope for the best. You need the skeleton. I use a combination of rebar for the big spans and fiberglass mesh for the surface tension. It's the difference between a brittle cracker and a reinforced bridge. It's all about giving the concrete a little bit of pull to go with its push.
It sounds like a lot of work, but I guess compared to paying 10 grand for custom granite, it's a steal.
Oh, it's a massive saving. But more than that, it's yours. There's a specific kind of pride when you set a hot pan down on a piece of stone that you cast, you polished, and you installed. It makes the steaks taste better, I swear.
I think the steaks taste better because you're usually 3 beers deep by the time you're using the outdoor kitchen.
Also a valid point.
So, what's the big takeaway for today? Between the Makita Panasonic merger and the concrete countertops, it feels like the theme is integration.
That's a good word for it. Whether it's the tools merging tech, or a maker merging their craft with a business mindset, or even just merging concrete with steel, the magic happens when you stop seeing things as separate boxes.
And the trades. It's not just about turning a wrench anymore. It's about being the smartest person in the room who also knows how to turn a wrench.
Exactly. Don't just be a pair of hands. Be the brains behind the hands. That's where the value is. Whether you're negotiating a raise in the HVAC world or selling a custom table to a neighbor, you're selling your expertise, not just your time.
Well, I'm going to go integrate some lunch into my schedule. What are you doing?
I've got a date with a vibrating sander and a very large bucket of cement. My neighbors are going to love the noise.
Good luck with that. Until next time, stay hungry, keep building, and for heaven's sake, wear your safety glasses.
And don't forget to enjoy the sawdust. Catch you on the next one.